Hey guys, I'm Allison and I'm here to talk about Chapter 10, Managing Conflict and Negotiating. For starters, when it comes to conflict, let's compare and contrast dysfunctional versus constructive. We have each had a lot of both in our lives. And so dysfunctional is, of course, when two people are very emotional and they're only seeking to find the differences and fight over the differences between each other. And then constructive is what also the book calls functional conflicts, where you are both trying to work together to reach a common goal, and there might be some disagreement along the way. And so, some common causes of conflict are tasks, there are process of those tasks, there is interpersonal differences, which is basically the clashing of personalities, resource constraints, which is basically when you're competing over the limited resources, change, differing values, poor communication, and task interdependence. Task interdependence is basically when you're depending on another person for information and they are very slow in giving it. The other is, of course, organizational structure, where you kind of don't trust from the top down. And so, continuing into kind of how conflict works, we gotta want to look at how conflict escalation works. And so, of course, conflict escalation is when things kind of get out of hand, so to speak. And so, Glassell, of course, has 9 stages of how that happens. There's hardening, where you're both still kind of arguing over things, still in discussion, and then there's debate when the discussion gets even more heated, and then there's actions over words when people stop talking but start actually doing something to hurt the other person. Moving into images and coalitions when it becomes an attack on the person's identity, which moves into loss of face, which it goes from just attacking the identity in front of the person to their face, but then also to other people. And then moving into, of course, using threats in order to get your way. And then, of course, it ends up being limited attempts to overthrow and basically cause them to be degraded, which also, in doing that, you'll be attacking their main base, which is whether it's their faith or whether it's their family or their job. The goal of that is, of course, to make sure that they don't have anything to hold them up. And then in the end, it becomes what's called together into the abyss, where there is no coming back. And so, in order to avoid getting to the abyss, you want to learn how to de-escalate an issue. And so, in de-escalating, we're looking at do's and don'ts. And so, some of the do's here, of course, is to be empathetic, especially a listener that's empathetic. We're looking at, of course, focusing your attention on the other person solely, kind of giving them all of your attention when there's an issue. And then, of course, using delay tactics to diffuse emotions. And so you want to make sure that you are giving them room to kind of let the heat die. And then, of course, control your body language. You want to make sure that you have open body language, not crossed arms. So this says, I don't want to talk to you, and this says, hey, what's going on? And then, of course, you want to make sure that you are maintaining eye contact. So eye contact says you're the only person I'm hearing right now. And then, of course, you want to make sure that we are reminding both parties that you want a win-win. You both want to get something out of it and not something that is only solely for one side or the other. And then, of course, last but not least, you want to stay focused on the issues and not on emotions. And so just keep that in mind as do's, and then just make sure you're doing all these things. You won't end up doing the don'ts. And of course, but in that, I know this is not focusing on emotions, but we can't forget how important emotions are and the roles of emotions are in conflict, because a lot of times it is because of emotions conflict arise. And so the quote I posted on the slide here is that emotions are an important element of conflict. They define individuals' subjective interpretation of reality and reactions during current situations. Everybody has a pair of rose-colored glasses, especially in conflict. And so it's about making sure that you are recognizing that and not trying to break the glasses, but trying to accommodate the glasses. Of course, moving into that, the ways that practically can be done is the interpersonal conflict styles. And so you either have the side of things where concern for others versus the personal pursuit of self-interest. And so when you are high on the concern for others, but also high on pursuit of self-interest, there becomes this desire for collaborating. And so trying to make sure you find something that everybody loves. And then if you are high on the concern for others and low on the pursuit of personal gain, then there just comes to an attempt in accommodating, making sure that the other person feels loved. And then, of course, you have something where it's right there in the middle where you both sacrifices on either side. And then if you have a low concern for others and a low concern for personal interest, it becomes about avoiding, and avoiding can sometimes cause some seriously awkward tension. And then finally, if you have a low concern for others and a high concern for yourself, then it becomes a competition and often results at the expense of somebody else in a relationship, and that kind of sucks. And so don't do that. So in that, we want to look at the conflict process. And so the conflict process being how it starts and how it escalates and how you manage it. So one of the big major things when we look at management skills here is listening. The Lord says, be quick to listen and slow to speak. That's a huge skill to learn. And then questioning, and questioning by that doesn't mean like, why'd you do this? It's all about, hey, what are better ways to understand what's going on? It's questioning for clarification's sake, not questioning for debate's sake. And then, of course, nonverbal communication, we want to look at that, where it's crossing the arms again, and so I want to be careful of that. And then mediating, making sure that if there need be, that there's somebody there who can benefit the both of the sides. And so process being the conflict starts, creates a disagreement. You either have emotions or you don't. If there is emotions felt, then we're looking into the conflict escalating probably, and then using those management skills in order to eliminate the destructive and try to pursue the constructive results. And so we want to look, of course, at best and worst practices in that. And so we want to make sure that at all times that it always comes out to a constructive end and not a destructive end. We don't want to fall into the abyss. And so a best practice here, of course, is we're looking at perspective taking. Put yourself in other people's shoes. We're looking at focusing on the interests rather than position. And so we're looking here at basically finding the goal. What is the basis? What do they want? Not looking at the emotions of things. And so, of course, but in emotions, that don't be afraid to be honest. Don't be afraid to open up about things and how you're feeling, because that actually may make a big difference. As well as make sure that you are the one that's reaching out, be the bigger person. Document everything. Because in an office setting, if somebody is of malice heart and wants to turn around and tell your superior something other than what's actually been discussed, and you have proof. Make sure that you're trying actively to smooth things over. And then, of course, making sure that you are desiring to identify 3 or 4 specific actions the other person would like you to take. So you're kind of stepping back in the humble position. And then worst practices, avoiding. Like I said before, tension is terrible. Don't make it a competition. That's terrible. Winning at all costs. Conflicts aren't competitions. There are competitions for a reason. Those are supposed to be good sports about stuff like that. Displaying anger. Do not yell at people just because you're raising your voice doesn't make people listen better. It actually makes people listen worse. And using verbiage which is demeaning, like you are this, you are that, actually hurts you more than saying things like, you're making me feel like this. And don't retaliate, and make sure that you're not meeting with other people and gossiping, because that's petty. Of course, you want to make sure that you are actively using negotiation skills. And so being either, there's distributive, which means that it comes down to passing over the agreement to the other party if they are right versus you being wrong, or vice versa. Or most of the time it can be integrative, where there's something that everybody can get out of it. So the 4 fundamentals of that, you've got the separate people from the problem. You want to save relationships. Focus on interests, not positions. We went over that already. Invent options out of things where kind of think outside the box. But make sure when you think outside the box that it's fair for everybody. And so something to really remember as well is how important cultures are. And so everybody has comes from a different background, a different traditions. And so I want to make sure that you are being accommodating to other cultures. And so not everybody's an American. And even as Americans, some people are West Coast, some people are East Coast. It's a different culture. And so being prepared in a conflict to understand somebody else's culture is crucial so it doesn't blow up in your face. And of course, last but not least, we're looking at the alternative disputes resolution. And so you're involving a third person if necessary so they can create conciliation between you and somebody else, act as a mediator, kind of diving into the issues on both sides impartially, so you're able to be arbitrary and give you a solution. A lot of these times, another name for a mediator would be an ombudsman. But last but not least, of course, here we gotta come up with the question you're gonna answer. The question that I'm asking is actually in your book. It's to think about a current or past conflict that you've experienced with a coworker, friend, family member. In which of the Glassell's conflict stages did it end in, or is it currently in? And then, of course, how you kept the conflict from escalating, or how you de-escalated it, and if it's current, that how you're going to do so. So I just want to say that's all, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.